Paul Rudd, what happened to you? Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And I wanted to review 3 movies I watched recently. I didn't know if they're worth doing one review for, but I'll try to get all 3 here. The 3 movies I watched were, 2 of them had Paul Rudd in them, basically starring them. That's why I talked about Paul Rudd at the beginning. But one is Death of a Unicorn, another one's Friendship, and then also the 3rd movie I want to talk about is The Phoenician Scheme, the last Wes Anderson movie that came out. Anyway, so let's start with Death of a Unicorn. This came out, I don't know, some months ago. And I remember there was a little bit of hype behind this movie. I remember people talking about, I remember seeing the trailer and everybody's like, oh, Death of a Unicorn. Everybody was kind of excited about it. And I remember seeing the trailer going, I don't understand if this is a comedy or a horror movie, because the trailer really had a horror movie vibe to it. Like they're being stalked and killed by this unicorn or something like that. But yeah, you had Paul Rudd in here. You have Jenny Ortega. I hope I'm saying these names right. What's his name? Will Poulter, I think his name is also in here. Anthony Carrigan has a small role. So looking at the cast, Tia Leone is in here. So looking at the cast, I thought, especially when you have Paul Rudd at the lead, I just assumed, like, is this like a comedy? And yeah, so it was weird. I'm like, if it's a comedy, I'm like, I'm for it. If it's a horror movie, then I'm not for it. So this does have this, again, when watching the movie, and you know, if you haven't seen the movie, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, it's a father-daughter. He's traveling to visit this rich guy who's like dying of cancer to make some kind of business deal, and he takes his daughter with him. And anyways, and they hit a unicorn on the way there. And they go out and they're like, what the heck, you know, they kind of can't believe it. It's like, this unicorn? It looks like a unicorn. But it's not quite dead. And I think he actually bashes it over the head with something. But Jen Ortega's character, like, touches his horn and, like, connects with it or something. Anyways, but they take the body and they put it in their back of their trunk. And it's still alive, I guess, when they get in. And then it gets shot or something. I can't remember. So it seems like they're constantly trying to kill this unicorn, not know what to do. But this rich family sees it and they want to study it because they're like, this magical or whatever. They actually discover that the unicorn blood can cure things, including this guy's like cancer gets cured because he takes some of the unicorn blood. So then he wants to take the unicorn blood and like sell it and make a bunch of money. It's kind of what his whole thing is. While Jen Ortega's character is like, oh, this is morally wrong what we're doing and all this. Anyways, so it turns out that the unicorn is actually like the kid unicorn, and there's actually a mom and dad unicorn coming to look for it. And that's where we get the horror aspect. Once the mom and dad come in, then it's a total horror movie. I mean, there are some of the most gruesome kills I've seen in a movie this lately. Yeah, not only do they impale people with their horn, you know, like you would see, which is pretty gruesome itself, they rip one person like in half, like they take 2 sides, I think, rip one person in half. Tia Leone has such a gruesome death where the unicorn's like eating her stomach and the intestines, and it's pretty gross. Like, it's a little too gross for my taste. So I always thought and again, it's just them wanting to get back their unicorn baby, but and then there's question, and there's a lot of magical stuff that happen, and it's just ridiculous. And I thought the whole premise was not that great to begin with, unless you throw in something really funny. Like I said, if it's a funny comedy, or if there's some thrills in there, maybe, but it was just, I don't know, none of it worked for me. Overall, I just thought it was kind of a boring movie. And then the horror aspect, I just absolutely hated. Like I said, it was just really gross and wasn't my kind of movie personally. I don't know, I wasn't into any of it. And then and plus the unicorns are this bad CGI. They're all CGI, you know, unicorn characters. And it's just so obvious CGI. I never really believed that it was a real unicorn or whatever. And some people get killed, and it's like, did they deserve that bad of death? Like, some of the people might have been maybe jerks or selfish, but like, I don't think they deserve getting murdered this gruesomely. Like, I don't know what the movie was saying with that. Like, it was, you know, like they deserved it or something. I didn't think that at all. I won't give away the ending, but anyways, it's still just really, it ends and it's like, okay, what now? What's next? I don't know. do I feel better about the characters at the end? Not really. And my main one of the craziest things is Paul Rudd, which I'm gonna talk about Paul Rudd because I have two of his movies here. But like, what happened to Paul Rudd? Because this movie is nothing for his role. He plays kind of the lead role, kind of as a dad, whatever. But he's not funny in the movie, and it's not dramatic. He's, not saying he can do drama. I've seen him do drama, okay, but he's obviously known for his comedy. That's why you watch a Paul Rudd movies, because he's a really funny actor. And I personally like him because he went to Kansas University. He's a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, Kansas City Royals fan. And and he's a KU basketball fan as well. So he has a lot of ties to Kansas. So I'm a big fan of Paul Rudd himself. And man, he was on fire at one time, and then he has done just terrible movie after terrible movie as he's getting older here. And I don't know, he's just not doing really good comedies anymore. Feels like since Ant-Man, he just hasn't really done a good comedy in a while. I might be wrong, but I can't think of a whole lot on top of my head. But like I said, like when he was doing like Anchorman, it was so hilarious, and I Love You Man was hilarious. Even this part in what's it called? I now forget the name of the movie, but he had small parts in other movies that he was always just killing it. And then he even gets Ant-Man, which is a huge Marvel, superhero, which is like, wow, he's even going to be now in Marvel. Like, you didn't think about that about this guy. He's just a comedy kind of guy. And then he does Ant-Man, which is okay. Ant-Man and the Wasp is okay. But he does Civil War, which is an amazing movie. He does Endgame, one of my favorite movies of all time. So he's involved with these huge movies, and he kind of becomes a huge superstar, it feels like, with those movies, and even is like Sexiest Man Alive, People's Sexiest Man Alive, which was kind of shocking, somewhat. Wasn't expecting that to happen. So he was really on top of his game. And then he does like the Ghostbusters movies, which aren't great, I don't think, and particularly not that funny, and it felt like a waste of his talent. Ant-Man Quantumanium is one of the worst Marvel movies ever made. It was a really terrible movie. Not his fault, it's just, unfortunately that's the way Marvel's gone. So it's like, wow, that was bad. The Ghostbuster movies were bad. And then he does this in Friendship, which I haven't got the Friendship yet, but I think were really bad movies. And just not a good use of his talent. Like, he hasn't, like, Ant-Man was good because he was good enough shape, he can do the action parts and also provide some comedy to the action, which I thought actually worked really well. But lately, all these kind of comedy, sci-fi, action, whatever he's doing just is not working at all. I don't know. It's just been a bad time for Paul Rudd lately, and I'd love to see Paul Rudd do some good material again. I'm really rooting for the guy. But yeah, I really hated Death of a Unicorn. Yeah, it's a 1 out of 5 stars. It's one of the worst movies for me. And that gets to my next movie, Friendship. And this is Tim Robbins and Paul Rudd are kind of the leads here. And Tim Robbins was so weird because Tim Robbins, I remember him back on Saturday Night Live because I was a huge Saturday Night Live fan, which I need to get back to talking about Saturday Night Live because it's the 50th anniversary. But I remember Tim Robbins being he was like a writer, I think, on Saturday Night Live, and they promoted him to being one of the featured players, or being a cast member. And so I remember that one year he was a cast member, and I was like, oh, who's this guy? Tim Robbins, don't know him. And he felt like he barely was any, at least if he was in a sketch, he was never like the lead. He never like created like a really funny character. And if he did, I feel like a couple of times maybe he was the lead in a sketch, on one of the sketches. It wasn't very good, and he wasn't very funny, and it didn't really work that well. This has happened a couple of times. I've noticed that happen every once in a while. Where they'll promote a writer into to one of the main cast members, and then they don't really work out, and then they go back to writing. That's basically what happened to Tim Robbins. I'm assuming he's a really good comedy writer, and that's why he was on Saturday Night Live. Not that he's a terrible comedic actor. He's got some comedic skills, but he's just, I don't know, it never really worked out for him. And the one year he was like he was a cast member, he didn't do anything. And then if I remember right, my memory is that he then got demoted kind of, or I don't know if he decided he wasn't doing a good job, or they decided that he wasn't working out as a cast member. I think he went back to being a writer, and he just wrote for, and maybe appeared every once in a while, but so he kind of got promoted and demoted, and that just he was never a big deal there. And he went on and did like his own sketch comedy show, I think on Netflix, which I haven't seen, but I've heard people say it's pretty good. It's something I need to check out. So he went on and did his own sketch comedy stuff, and I guess people think he's good at it. So he's got some, underground notoriety here, like cult, kind of status because of that. But definitely has never been a mainstream guy. Never, I don't know if he's acted in a movie or had a major part before. So it's crazy to watch this and go, wow, he's the lead actor. Like, how did he get that part? Except that I don't know that he wrote it either. I don't think he wrote the movie, right? Because I feel like it would make sense if he was like maybe the writer director and he put himself in the lead or something like that. And this is like a passion project, but it's he didn't direct it or write it, I don't think. Anyways, but anyway, so the whole movie, and again, I remember watching the trailer and it didn't look that interesting there, or I didn't quite understand what's going on. I was like, is he going to turn to like a psychopath? That's what it seemed like in the trailer. Like he becomes friends with Paul Rudd, and then Paul Rudd's like, I don't really want to be friends with you, and then he kind of goes psycho. That's what it looks like. So you're like, where's this going? I don't know. Is it a comedy? Is it a I don't know, suspense thriller? I don't know. Where's this movie going? It was. Besides that, I didn't know if this was really that intriguing a movie, but I heard some people like kind of excited for it, like, oh, this looks good or something. And so I caught it. I don't remember it really doing anything in the theater. I think it kind of just came and went. But I finally caught around to seeing this. I thought, well, it did. I remember people talking about the movie or wanting to see it. So I was like, it's worth maybe a watch, see if it's underrated movie or something like that. Maybe it's surprisingly like a really good comedy. Anyways, so I checked it out, and man, is it a terrible movie. Oh God, it's so bad. It's one of the worst movies definitely of this year. It's, man, up there with Snow White is one of the worst movies I've seen so far this year. And it's all this Tim Robbins character. He's got a new next door, or not next door neighbor, but kind of a neighbor he meets played by Paul Rudd, who's a meteorologist. And he gets his mail and he goes to give him his mail, and that's where they kind of meet and they talk a little bit. And then he invites him over and they hang out. And it's like, and he's just, and the whole thing about Tim Robbins' character and this is his whole comedy thing, is that he's very weird and cringe, and he just socially awkward. He just doesn't know how to, interact very well in social situations, and nobody likes this guy. And he's married and has like a son, and it doesn't seem like they like him either. So he's just, I almost feel kind of sad for this guy because he's just a sad character. Like, but I can understand why. He's just weird, so nobody likes him. And it's like, okay, where's this movie going? It felt like it really didn't go anywhere, though. It's like, are we going anywhere with this? But anyway, so they kind of become friends for some reason. Paul Rudd's like inviting him over a lot and kind of starting this friendship. Though Paul Rudd seems like a cool character, and I like Paul Rudd in the role, actually, even though I hate the movie. Paul Rudd's actually, kind of, I think, a better performance than he's given, like in Death of the Unicorn or Ghostbusters. I think this is actually a little bit better performance for him. But yeah, the whole movie is just cringe humor, and that's my least favorite kind of humor. Was just, all right, we're gonna have Tim Robbins do something very weird and cringy, and it's gonna be awkward. It's awkward humor. It's like he's gonna do something awkward, and everybody's gonna look at him awkwardly, and he's gonna say something awkward. And that's the whole humor, and I just can't take that kind of humor. I hate that kind of humor. The whole time I'm just like, oh God, I feel bad for this guy, kind of, but yeah, he deserves it. It just wasn't funny at all. Like, I didn't laugh at all for a comedy. Yeah, and then it goes in this weird direction where he's hanging out with Paul Rudd's character, and he's got some of his friends around, and yeah, some weird stuff happened, and Paul Rudd's kind of finally like, yeah, you're a little too weird. And so then he has to tell him, and he kind of becomes obsessed with him. Basically, Tim Robbins becomes obsessed with Paul Rudd as a friend, and like, because he thinks he's really cool. And so he even has like these, daydream, imagination, fantasy things of them hanging out and having fun and stuff. So he's kind of unhealthy. He kind of has an unhealthy obsession with him. And it goes to a point where, yeah, Paul Rudd would say, yeah, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. It's just not working out. And so then he, of course, goes unhinged, very upset about this. And it kind of ruins his whole life. He gets fired from his job. He basically, his wife leaves him. He doesn't have a good relationship with his son. It's like all this terrible stuff. He even gets arrested at one point. Well, and then later in the movie, he does something really crazy, anyways, and I won't go into it, but it goes into a really crazy direction, and kind of ends with not a very happy ending. It just kind of ends, and he's still kind of he is kind of a bit of a psychopath who just kind of at the end just it's like, okay, I guess his life is ruined because he's now a psychopath. I don't know. It's just a terrible ending. It's a terrible movie. It was just a I don't know, just like nails on a chalkboard. The whole movie is just painful to watch. That's what when a comedy is trying to be funny, it's not. It's painful, and that's what this movie was. It was just a painful movie to watch. So definitely one of the worst movies of the year for me. Friendship, definitely 1 out of 5 for me. Yeah, it was horrible. All right, then I'm gonna get to the last movie, The Phoenician Scheme. This is a Wes Anderson movie, starring Benicio del Toro in the lead here. Yeah, I just did a Wes Anderson actually ranking recently, and I said he's a bit of hit or miss. Some of his really good movies I really like. He definitely has this unique style about him. We all know when you see a Wes Anderson movie, it's just he has a unique way he stages a scene, and his comedy and his characters are very stone-faced a lot of times, and very fast-paced dialogue, I would say, with no emotion. Like, he loves having characters just talk like this with no emotion and blah, blah, blah. And there's some quirkiness to the characters maybe that maybe provides some of the comedy. But yeah, everybody's just so stone-faced, no emotion. That's just his style anyways. And I've kind of noticed that recently. It's like, it's a little too much. But that's the way he likes to do movies. But he always has a good cast. I love the way he designs. The design of the scenes are really good. The colors and everything is usually really what he's really good at, I think. And, so the way he directs a scene is interesting in some points. And sometimes the comedy is not always like laugh out loud funny, but it's more like I chuckle to myself, go, that's kind of funny. That was kind of a funny idea. It's more like that through a lot of his movies. And I've been very hard on his last 2 movies. The last 2 movies are horrible. Asteroid City, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And even The French Dispatch before that I thought was terrible. And Asteroid City was even worse. So I think his worst 2, Ball Rocket's his worst movie. I think his first movie. But the next 2 worst movies are The French Dispatch and Asteroid City. Just really terrible movies. So I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to see a Wes Anderson movie or not. I was kind of excited after he had this great run with like Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest Hotel. I thought were great movies. And even Fantastic Mr. Fox, The World of Tenenbaums. He had a couple of really, really good movies. And then even Darjeeling Limited I actually really like. But then the last couple, it's just like, I don't know, his style just is getting a little too tiring for me maybe. And it's just, the quirkiness of it is just not working. It's like, okay, can we stop being so quirky? Can we just be kind of normal, once in a while? But that's just his style. Anyway, so The Phoenician Scheme. So I'm going to say this is a much better movie than the last 2 movies. And so I was very happy to watch this movie and go, okay, finally we're getting something that's somewhat interesting, that I can, that gave me a couple chuckles here and there, and was kind of somewhat interested in what was going on, unlike the last 2 movies, were just absolutely horrible. Now, it's still not up to his best stuff. It's still not, S tier, A tier, even B tier, Wes Anderson stuff, The whole movie, Benicio del Toro plays this like really rich guy who everybody keeps trying to kill him. He keeps surviving barely through these sessions. It begins with him in a plane crash. Someone has a bomb on a plane, and he has to crash the plane, and they think he's dead. In fact, he has these moments when he dies, basically, and he's like in the afterlife, and he has like these afterlife moments, and then he's back alive, and so that's kind of part of the comedy of the whole thing. Is like he keeps getting killed, but then coming back somehow, and he keeps having these afterlife moments where he's talking to people in the afterlife. It's Wes Anderson. It's very weird. It's a very weird movie, like a lot of his movies in that sense. So the whole movie is he has a daughter played by, I think her name's Mia Stapleton or something like that, who is actually Kate Winslet's daughter, which I didn't know that. But she plays a nun it's his like daughter that he gave up to the nuns or something, to a convent. And so she grew up as a nun or something. And he wants to give all his, basically if he dies, he wants her to have his fortune and his business or something like that. and he has a bunch of sons, like a bunch of young sons, but she must be the oldest because I don't know. And they don't have a relationship together, but yet for some reason he really wants to make sure she's like the one who gets all this stuff. And so he wants to take her and kind of, show her, all, what he's doing and kind of, mentor her so she's ready to take over like his business, I guess, or something. I don't know. I'm gonna say I guess because I was so confused this whole movie. It's another Wes Anderson's his storylines are just so confusing. I had a hard time following what's going on. So for the most part, I had a really hard time following. That's my biggest criticism of this movie is that it is so confusing. It's so hard to follow the way it's shot and the way it's edited and everything. That the whole time I'm like, I don't know what he's doing in this scene. I don't know who these people are, what the purpose of these people are, except that he's going around and like trying to get, because it's called the Phoenician Scheme. So he's trying to get people involved in this project that he's doing. I don't understand what the project is, but he's trying to get money from different people. So they travel a lot in the movie and like meet different people and try to get them involved anyways. And that's kind of the whole movie. And like I said, his daughter's traveling with him. And another person, now I'm forgetting his name. Michael Cera. Sorry, I had to think for a second. Michael Cera is in this movie. I can't give away too much, but he's like kind of a tutor to his kids or something like that. And he's like a scientist or something. And so he's with him on these travels for some reason. And Michael Cera is the best part of this movie. He totally kills it. He is the one that makes me laugh the most in this movie. And he's got like an accent in this movie. And I don't know, Michael Cera is like perfect. Like this is the first time I think I've seen Michael Cera in a Wes Anderson movie. And after seeing that, I'm like, man, this guy's perfect for Wes Anderson. I think his style of comedy just works well in a Wes Anderson movie, which I'm like, he should be more of these type of movies. Obviously, Benicio del Toro was in The French Dispatch. I think is the only one I remember him being in. So he brought him back for this, though I'm not a big fan of Benicio del Toro. Never really been a big fan of his stuff, but being the lead like in a comedy, he doesn't really work as a comedic actor. I don't know, I didn't really care for his character or for his performance. I think it was probably one of the weakest parts. Compared to a lot of the side characters that come in and out of the movie. Like I said, Michael Cera to me was the highlight and the all-star of the movie, where every scene he was in was pretty good. And he worked really well in this. Mia Stelton was okay. I can't say too much about her performance. We do get some funny scenes. Like there's a scene with Tom Hanks comes back. He was in Asteroid City. Now he's in this, and Bryan Cranston. They play like two rich guys that he's trying to get money out of or something like that, but they're negotiating, and then they decide to play a basketball or a game of horse. And like if they beat them in a game of horse, something like that, they'll sign on to this deal. And it's kind of a funny moment because you got two kind of old guys, and Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston. They're wearing like these old school like workout outfits, and the way they shoot the basketball is it's terrible form, but it goes like swish. And like one time he like throws it above his head like this, and it goes in, and it just physically it was kind of funny. I thought the whole scene was actually probably the funniest scene in the whole movie. Them playing a game of horse, which it's odd, but it actually kind of works in that. And there's a couple things, like I said, like the whole him constantly almost getting assassinated is kind of funny in some scenes. Also, his daughter, who's a nun. They keep getting the scenes where like they offer alcohol, and she says, "Oh, I don't drink alcohol except for wine at at communion, whatever they call it." And then they explain to her what the alcohol is, and she goes, "Okay, I'll have one," and then she drinks it. So that was kind of funny because that happened several times in the movie where she's like, "Oh, I can't have alcohol," and then she's like, "Okay." So there's a couple of moments like that, like I said, that kind of make you chuckle and go, "Oh, that's kind of a funny callback," kind of. Again, Scarlett Johansson's in here, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jeffrey Wright. Incredible cast of side characters that come in and out of the movie. And like I said, there's moments of comedy in here, and there's moments of like, okay, it's a little too much for me. But I was actually kind of, for most of the movie, even though I was confused, I was kind of like on board. I was like, I'm kind of enjoying the characters and their interactions and the little moments. So I'm just, like I said, I'm happy that's not a horrible movie like the last two. Like, I'm like, I'm like, at least he's kind of getting back on track to making good movies. I would love to see a good Wes Anderson movie because I do love his kind of quirky style sometimes. But when I got to the end of the movie, and it kind of ends in this way where like, it kind of has a happy ending though, so I do like that. But yeah, at the same time, it was like, okay, what happened? Like, I was a little confused. Again, my biggest problem is I was just so confused. I was like, I don't know exactly what happened at the end. Didn't quite get it all. I don't know. It was hard to follow. And so that's why in the end, I'm kind of dissatisfied. I'm not going to give it a recommend. I'm giving it 2.5 stars out of 5. So it was almost a recommend. It's like very close to being a recommendable movie. It's almost that kind of movie where I'm like, it's not great, but it wasn't bad, you know. But at the end, I had to go, am I ever going to watch this movie again? No, because I can never try to follow this movie again because I couldn't follow it the first time. Don't really care to try to follow it again. Again, there was not enough laughs for me to go, yeah, I want to go back and watch this because it was really funny, or I can't recommend it to somebody and say, yeah, it's really funny, watch it. And I don't know, there wasn't enough, again, I couldn't follow the story, so there's not a good enough story there where I'm like, yeah, it's a fun story to follow. I don't know. There's not enough there for me to go, yeah, this is a movie I really want to watch ever again. So that's why I had to give it the 2.5 stars and not quite recommendable. It just wasn't enough there for me to, but yet I'm somewhat positive in the sense that it was a much better movie than what he did the last 2 times. So I'm hopeful that maybe he can make another good movie. That would be nice to see. But yeah, that's a Phoenician Scheme as well on my list. So those are the 3 movies. Tell me if you've seen any of these 3 movies and what you thought about them. Did you like any of them? I unfortunately was not a fan of these movies. So yeah, besides that, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. And thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all and hope you have a good day.